let's debunk some common myths.
On an exhibition stand, I was once asked if timber frame blows down. The skills shortage problem that we're facing, they're probably not all that keen on learning new methods.
The one we get is, I can't get a mortgage on a timber frame property, can I? All the time.
Yeah.
For everyone listening, you definitely can. There's no problems whatsoever. You can definitely get mortgage funding. Hello and welcome back to the Self Builders Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Pawley, and today I'm joined by Sarah Matheson from Fleming Homes and Joe Higginson from Hugo Homes.
Yep, Hugo Homes.
I'm really looking forward to this one. So these guys are everything sort of custom build, really. But I'd like to start, if we could, just break it down into each of your guys' respective companies. Just tell everybody sort of a little bit about Fleming, Sarah, if you would, where you started and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much, Mike, for inviting me to join you on the podcast today. I'm really excited to be here with Joe. So just kick off about Fleming Homes. We design and manufacture bespoke timber frame homes, and we do this off-site within a factory setting. They're bespoke homes for self and custom builders. We've been in business for nearly 40 years. The business was named after Thomas Fleming, and he purchased the business on our site. It was a business called Clanwood Homes in 1986, and some of the directors of that original company still work with us today, even though one of them is 80.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and the other is an impressive 84 years old. So there's actually timber frames being manufactured on our site here for over 50 years. So we've got a long history of timber frame manufacture. Both of our octogenarians work 3 days a week, and I think that really goes to the heart of what our business is about. It's about people who love what they do and want to keep on doing it. They're not prepared to give it up. And I also love the fact that there's a gap of 67 years between the youngest person on our payroll in December and the oldest. But to talk
That's awesome.
Yeah, I just love that. And a little bit more, I suppose, around our why. We really care about the experience we deliver and how we make our customers feel when they engage with us. My absolute favourite quote is the Maya Angelou one. I'm probably going to mess it up, but she says that people forget what you said, people forget what you did, but people never forget the way you make them feel. And I think that's really, really powerful. And the way we make people feel extends beyond our customers to our colleagues. Obviously we aim to deliver quality products, but we recognise that service is a key part of this, and our commitment to service comes from our value as individuals and as a team. And I also realise that when you talk about values-led, it can feel a little bit cliched, but I do genuinely believe that we're a values-led team.
I've seen your values in quite a lot of merch and like marketing stuff as well, so it's quite obviously you can tell it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And along with that, we've been developing our standards. So we're moving towards being really standards led in how we communicate as a team. Our mission is to deliver value in every customer interaction, with the aim of making self-build more straightforward. And our vision is really, really simple. It's for self-build to become the norm, and custom build, self and custom build to become the norm, rather than the exception, because ultimately we want more people to feel comfortable about taking that leap of faith into self-building their own home.
Yeah, we're going to dig into that today. It's going to be awesome. Joe, thanks for coming on. Tell us a little bit about Hugo and yourself and why the business started and what you guys do.
No problem. Well, as I say, likewise, thank you for the invite, and first time podcaster. So we'll see how all this pans out. So my background, I've always been involved in property development and investment work, predominantly, I have to confess, mainly commercial property development work for the first 20 odd years of my career. So that always kind of gave me really pretty good grounding in terms of the whole development process, working with teams of people and actually delivering projects on site. So really the idea for Hugo Homes started to come around in about 2017, and really was a few strands of things coming together. A planning consultant who I was using on a different project completely, just over a cup of coffee, mentioned something about this thing called the Self and Custom Build Act, which was completely new to me, and I was kind of intrigued. And what's that all about? So he kind of informed me more around it, and just got chatting. And at that point, I just started really doing some more research into it, trying to understand what it was, who was involved, and the whys and the wherefores behind it. And again, really just went to walk around a few of the big shows that you see advertised, in terms of this industry. And I was potentially the strange person who was approaching people in the coffee stands at these shows, talking to them. And what I kind of realised quite quickly was really a lot of people were going to the shows. There was a big demand from people who wanted to build their own house in the kind of broadest sense. But fundamentally, they all had the same problem, and that was they couldn't find a plot of land on which to build their house. So really, I just took that germ of an idea and just thought to myself, well, there's got to be an opportunity to get involved on probably fairly small scale development sites, anything from kind of 2 to 15, 20 plots. Bring on board the construction development expertise that we already had, put the services into that site, and really then just allow people to acquire the plot upon which they can then custom and or self-build their house. And that was how it and the plan was no greater than that really at the time. Perhaps naively, I'm not too sure. But so that was the idea. So Hugo Homes really got formed in 2018, just with perfect timing, ready for the pandemic. We kind of got involved on that really, and it has just evolved really. So the model is still the same. It's still all about into multi-plot sites predominantly, the infrastructure, the services, sorting out all the planning, and really then giving those customers that you see walking around all of these shows the opportunity to acquire the plot of land upon which to have their house built. It's grown from there then, and it's probably something we'll touch on as we talk, but the model has then evolved and changed in terms of bringing people on board and working very closely with people like Sarah at Fleming Homes, and obviously yourself in terms of the financing. And it really now has kind of evolved into a business whereby not only do we aim to provide the plot, but really then we have a network of people sat around us to help that customer on that journey. And really kind of take them from A to B all the way through. And that's, as I say, working closely with people like Sarah and obviously yourself and others.
I've got a question that is a leading question from that, actually. It ties in lovely, but I do want to know where the name came from. This is so unusual. It's just popped into my mind, and I really want to know.
So I can't claim any credit for it because it's far too imaginative for me to think about. So it basically comes from, and I'm going to get the pronunciation wrong, and it's ideal at this time of year. Every time at this time of year, you start to see all these Christmas adverts, and it's all about Scandinavian, and people call it Hygge, which is Hygge, and it's all about people kind of advertise this kind of cozy Scandinavian, kind of perfect idyllic Christmas, cozy.
Yeah, I can understand the vibe. So
Hugo is an equivalent ancient Norse derivative of that word. So you've got Hygge, which in ancient Norse and Norwegian and Scandinavian regions means that sense of well-being and coziness, and Hugo is an equivalent derivative of the same. So it means again that sense of well-being and coziness and all about it. And really, it was just, as I say, I'm not imaginative enough. It was a friend of mine who came up with that name. I can't claim any credit for it. But it was really about what a house is there really designed to do for you. It's to give you that sense of well-being, that cozy feeling when you are living in your own house. So, yeah.
It's volumes, doesn't it, about why you do what you do, I suppose. And then the next question was, like, how and why do you guys work? So how did you come together is probably the first question, and the why is probably going to come out of that, I think.
Okay, so shall I go first, Sarah? Because I say
Yeah.
Sarah's probably still questioning the why, but anyway, really what happened was when and it kind of goes back to what I was saying really about what we do has evolved. So, and I'm going to kind of deviate slightly, but I will come back to it. So most of our customers now, when they come to us, and again, very simply, I kind of break them down into 3 categories. We get people who come to us who are absolutely, they're all over, they know exactly what they want. They've always wanted to build their own house. It's something that they've been working towards for however long to do it. They know what they want. They know how to get it and all that. So we have that kind of customer. The second category, really, as I kind of call them, is the ones where a customer will come to us and one of the partners in that family unit is absolutely, I want to do this, I've always wanted to do it. And you kind of get the feeling that the other one is perhaps just a little bit going along for the ride at the start, but looking for an opportunity to kind of say, well, I'm a bit nervous about doing this and I'm not too sure. And then we get the third category, the ones who now anyway just really stumble across us on the website or wherever and intrigued about what we do. But really, in terms of kind of helping then those customers, the first category are quite, relatively speaking, quite easy because they know what they want and they understand the process. They might have done it before. It's the second and the third category really where we have more of a process whereby we need to help them through that kind of custom build journey. And this kind of doesn't, I will come back to the Fleming Homes, but it's really across the board then in terms of our consultants. But what we basically realised was a lot of customers came to us and they just needed more hand-holding and help along the way. And that was in terms of how we go about the construction process and all the rest of it. So we started to look around for people that we could kind of bring into the network of trusted suppliers, advisors who could help it. I always was a big fan when I started looking at this of timber frame. Sarah will talk more about timber frame and the benefits of it, but I was always a big fan of the benefits of timber frame and construction and all the rest of it. And to be honest with you, I started looking around at various timber frame manufacturers, and without going into all the gory details of Sarah's opposition, really kind of got introduced to Fleming Homes, met Sarah, and from my point of view, what we really love about Fleming is twofold, really. First of all, and it goes hand in hand. They've got a great design service, so our customers can work with their in-house design on one of our sites. For example,
that was my secret question for you. That was Sarah.
We've got a design guide that we work with on one of our sites. Fleming Homes understand that design guide as well as I do. So again, when we have a customer, their designers are fully aware of that design guide. So that design process.
I tell you what, Joe. Let's put a bookmark there because I think this is an awesome service, and I didn't actually realise you guys did it until recently. The free design service Joe's just mentioned. How does it work, Sarah? And is it free? That's what people will be thinking.
Yeah, I totally get that, and I'll explain a little bit about how it came to be because that may put some sort of context around it. But the first thing to say is it is free. There are absolutely no catches, and the cost isn't built into our quotations. So it's not hidden somewhere. I suppose one way of describing it is it's allocated to our marketing budget. But it was born out of the fact that historically we found it really hard to have meaningful conversations. So we've been doing the show circuit, the consumer shows for many, many years. And it's really hard to have a meaningful conversation with somebody when they come along and they say, well, how much is it going to cost me to self-build my home? Now we can go down the ballpark route. We can talk about build routes. We can say it's going to be somewhere in this region, but without actually a design, it's really hard to get started. Coming back to our mission to help self-build become more straightforward. And it's a significant barrier because you need a budget, because if you're going to hire an architect, all of a sudden you are actually committing to the project. And then that commitment, which can be thousands and thousands of pounds, can become a sunk cost if the design that you've come up with is either unaffordable or you can't get planning. So we kind of, this free design service evolved many, many years ago. And our designers work with the self-builders that come to us, they're very early stages. The only caveat that we have is that they must have a plot.
Yeah, that makes sense. Otherwise you would be inundated with, people that have watched Grand Designs, I would imagine, and maybe never going to get to that point.
Yeah, and we say this isn't a case of chicken or egg. You absolutely have to have your plot first, because your design has to be appropriate for your plot. It has to take your plot, its orientation, all the individual factors around your plot and the environs and things have to be taken into account for the design. So what our designers do is they have an online consultation with the self-builder, and they take all of their hopes and desires and their aspirations for their new home, and they translate this onto paper so that the designs can be costed. It works best for us when the self-builder comes and they've got lots of ideas and they know what they want to do. And because quite a lot of people, they're looking to self-build a typical family home. If they come to us and they want to push the design envelope, they want to use all the latest materials and have an architecturally led design, then we will say, do you know what? We really think, your best first port of call is an architect. But often, our guys have been designing for timber frame, for many, many years. In fact, Bernard, one of our octogenarians, started his career with W.H. Colton Son, who are arguably the timber frame pioneers in the UK. They were established in 1919, I think, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Bernard still hand draws his designs. But he can do a design in a couple of hours. He's very, very fast. Whereas our younger designers, and I say this very loosely because one of them is in their very late 40s, are using all the latest, computer-aided design tools and Revit but it does, the design service ties right back to our mission to help make self-building more straightforward, because it gives people a platform to be able to say, this is what I'd really like to achieve. This is how much it's going to cost. Okay, actually, this is feasible. And they've done that without it actually costing them anything. And, as I said earlier, you need a plot first. And that's where Joe and his brilliant team come in.
I was going to say, you've read my mind. That ties in, I suppose, with Joe. Is that where you guys have worked that relationship, in the sense of somebody comes to Hugo or they want to buy a plot, you can rely on Sarah's team to be able to go, well, look, get the design done. We can start from there, and do you know what? It's not going to cost you a penny.
Yeah, I think absolutely, and I think that then flows into the actual product that Fleming Home provide and the service that they provide. And certainly what we found with our customers today is that whole kind of wraparound service of starting with them standing on the plot, this is what you can have, etc., working through the design guide, introducing them to Sarah's design team, going through the whole process, making sure it works, and then knowing that that's what is going to get delivered to site, and it gets delivered and on time, and it goes up as it should do, is fundamental to everything that we do, because that's people are putting their trust in us and the suppliers and everyone else that we use really to deliver it, because it is a very emotional, designing and building your own house and delivering it. It's a massive, for anyone, it's a big financial commitment, it's a big emotional commitment, and therefore it's all part of it in terms of having the right team to work with those customers and deliver it. Natural
synergy for you guys by the sounds of it. Joe, you essentially enable the plot. We'll get into a little more detail, I think, on custom build and the planning process and what it means for people. That would be really key. And then Sarah's team and Sarah will basically enable the construction. Let's touch on that just before we get there. Actually, let's just highlight for everyone listening who doesn't know what custom build is, if you could. Over to you, whoever wants to take it.
I'll go first, and then Sarah can correct me. The reason I say that is because, and I think it's possibly because I'm maybe a late entrant into this, kind of coming into it when I did. in terms of it, and everyone you talk to kind of then goes down a different route in terms of is it self-build and is it a custom build. My kind of very simple kind of approach to this is more because of the market that we aim to serve. So, as I say, predominantly we look at multi-plot sites whereby we are then subdividing and selling individual plots. And for lots of reasons, what I would say the custom build model is really the only one that works well on a multi-plot site. And my kind of take on custom build really is that you work with us and our contractor, and then in effect we deliver the whole project for you. And that's in its very loosest term, but it comes kind of back to that network of suppliers in terms of be it, Fleming Homes or contractors or other people supplying materials or equipment into the build. And really, we manage and take on that process of the build all the way through. And if this podcast was 5 hours long, we could probably then talk about all the different variations.
We'd talk about it all day. And there would be people listening probably. There would be those people who have just started who wanted to know the ins and outs of all the technical bits and the legislation. I tell you what does spring to mind though, Joe, you saying that about the custom build stuff. And really from what you're saying is you guys working together on your sites, it's a self-commissioned. It's a self-commissioned home. For people that are listening, you're not laying every brick, but you get the home you want. It reminds me of the stat that NACSPA pop out every year. It's usually fairly. The level's usually the same. 90% or 95% of people that are surveyed want to self-build, but actually only about 4% do. And I think it leads into that people want a home that they want to live in. They don't necessarily want to put the overalls on and get it done. And I think what you guys are doing is the sweet spot.
Yeah, I think that self-build has moved on from, if you think about where it was maybe 15 years ago, there were many, many more people that would, it was for the DIYer. But today it isn't. Some people do a little bit. They might lay down the floor insulation. They may do jobs. Some jobs they might help the labourer. They may do some stuff, but they won't do the whole thing. And it's everything from a tiny bit to somebody that actually digs their own groundworks, lays their own underfloor heating. There's a whole gamut. But
with Fleming, Sarah,
yeah.
do you guys do the full turnkey solution, or you do up to envelope, sort of watertight envelope frame erection?
That's exactly right. We will erect the home to the wind and watertight stage, and at that point we wish our customers well. But I have to say that we remain on the phone if they need us for anything.
Yeah. I can imagine internally as well. We see it. Joe, you must see this as well. It is at that point. So 64% of our customers last year use a timber frame system and the company to erect the scheme basically, and then they manage the internals.
Yeah,
we see that quite a lot.
I mean, the advantages as we see it in terms of the timber. I mean, one of the advantages for me on the timber frame and also then the customer is, it roughly speaking, 2 weeks to put the frame up is what we kind of say to customers, and that's I think predominantly where Sarah's erection teams come in. So within 2 weeks, you're wind and watertight. Now that basically then means that all the internal guys can get going and all the rest of it. Now, okay, you might have some delays then because of weather in terms of bricklaying or blocks or whatever on the externals, but it just means all your internal people can get going, relatively speaking, uninterrupted then. And kind of coming back, just to kind of come back to what Sarah said about the self, and people getting involved and all of us in that hybrid of self-build. We have on a couple of ours had people where they want to kind of get involved. And the answer to it is always, well, yes, of course you can, we'll talk to the contractor. What we find is actually then when we get into the nitty gritty of it, they kind of realise that actually probably best just leaving it to the main contractor to do it. And some of that is because of programming works. If we've got one main contractor doing everything, they've got a construction program and all the rest of it. And if someone then wants to get involved or they want to bring their best mate who's an electrician into it or anything else. We kind of sit there and go, well, yeah, you can do, but this is the program, and this is the program you're working to get that house delivered on that date. So can you guarantee that either you or your mate, the electrician, will be available on that date? And then by the time they start getting into all the ins and outs of it, we normally find that most people actually at that point, just kind of go, well, okay, just get on. You guys take it on board. And so we end up doing more of the work and more of the work. And also, it's the stuff that people don't like to consider, but you have to. It's the health and safety side of things. It's all the other things that are starting to come, and it is getting more and more technical in terms of compliance. And
so it's de-risked from the customer's point of view, but they get exactly what they want. Go on, Sarah.
Can I circle back to something I said earlier, which is what at the weather tight stage we say goodbye to our customers? Actually, that's not strictly true, because we also supply a range of follow-on materials, and one of the benefits to the self-builder or the custom builder, I suppose if they're working with Joe, Joe will do a lot of this under the main contractor heading, but for the self-builders that are coming to us with the one-off self-build properties, they will benefit obviously from our buying power, but also from our quantifying. So things like architraving, sills, staircases, they can order the internal doors, they can order them from us, and then they can call them off at points that are suitable to them during the rest of their build schedule. So there's lots of other bits that we get involved in order to, again, coming back to making it more straightforward and helpful, buying more from a one-stop shop, as it were.
No, that's awesome. So customers for you guys, then, they could order everything internally, materials-wise, that they need through your price book?
They can order additional layers of insulation, which would be part of their structural kit anyway.
Yeah.
They plasterboard, and skirtings, architraves, those kinds of things. Not everything, but there is a list, an extensive list of useful and common things that it helps for us to quantify and supply and just call off and send down when it's convenient for the self-builder or their trades to take it.
Unusual leverage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And also they have one point of contact if there's anything wrong with it.
Well, how does it? This is interesting, because someone else was saying this on a podcast to me the other week. Is they didn't really realise how time consuming and how much of a pain in the bum just the management of delivery of materials and sort of sending back materials and making sure things are on site when it's needed, and when deliveries don't come right, how does it get sorted, who sorts it out, who's at fault, that sort of stuff. If they come through you guys, will you guys, I'm assuming you've got the relationship with the supplier, so it's easier to sort of leverage that point and go, well, you've shorted us 10 meters of architrave, for example, we need that tomorrow, rather than a solo self-builder speaking to someone they've only just started a relationship with.
Yeah, absolutely. And the companies that we've had relationships with them for a very long time. So the customer care element is really important to us. So the customer doesn't have to worry about it. Of course they do, because it's a frustration or it's an inconvenience to them, but they just get on the phone to us and we'll sort it out. And that includes external joinery as well, which we supply.
Yeah, as opposed to being that solo customer of the PLC that doesn't get the same sort of relationship leverage. I was chatting to another guy, actually, a customer of ours who's finished a build, and he was sort of the opposite, really. He did have a really good experience, but he said the guy who looked after him, it wasn't the cheapest merchant he found, but he said I bought everything from them because he literally held his hand all the way through and explained about all the difficulties that you get with getting things on site when materials have to be ordered. They were emailing him, like, rather than him sort of following up for the 6-week lead time, whatever it may be, for some bricks or whatever. So it definitely happens, doesn't it? The value add there is huge. Because you're not going to get every account manager that's going to do that for you, I wouldn't have thought.
Yeah,
most of our customers build timber frame. Go on, Joe.
I was just going to say it's also the kind of management of the knock-on kind of consequences. It's what you just described, that terms of, well, if you don't order your materials in time, then they won't get delivered. But most without going into all the details of construction, most things are to a degree then dependent on certain things happening. So if a customer kind of misses that order date, yes, okay, they then delay that materials, but it's the knock-on delays and the knock-on implications of that not happening in time. And that's where
it's huge, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's where a lot of what we try and do is to avoid that, and because that's, again, kind of circling back all the way to the start of this in terms of what we aim to do for the customers, it's taking away that kind of fear factor of, oh, well, this could go wrong, that could go wrong, whatever. And all we're trying to do is put that support network around people to say, well, yeah, but we've got the team of experts who actually have done this before and can kind of take control of it. And that's across the board, really.
And you get what you want. You get to live in what you want. So the big boys all sort of tend to still use traditional, don't they? Traditional masonry construction. I mean, I think Persimmons use a timber frame, but they still use a sort of masonry outer skin, don't they? So it's not really what we would class as an MMC. It's not really the MMC, but Sarah, that term's probably not right, is it? Modern method of construction, because timber frame probably been around a lot longer than brick. In reality, but that's the jargon that's sort of thrown around, isn't it? Like most of our customers build from a timber frame system, a variant of, but for everyone listening, Sarah, can you just give an overview of why that might be and the advantages of building from a timber frame system?
Absolutely. So in Scotland, I think the stat is 73% of all residential dwellings are formed in timber. So we've been doing up here for a very, very long time.
I thought it'd be more, to be honest. I don't think we've ever done one that's been traditionally built in Scotland.
That's good to hear. Joe alluded to it earlier when he said it takes about 2 weeks to erect the typical sort of 4-bed family home. It only takes us 3.3 days to actually manufacture that. So there's the speed of manufacture, there's the speed of construction, and when you compare that with brick and block, which can take 2 to 3 months to get to the wind and watertight stage, you can already start to see how fast you can get to that key. And obviously the wind and watertight is that real sort of watershed moment in a build project. For anyone who's not familiar with wind and watertight, it's the process where the dwelling is protected from weather. So sometimes it's also referred to as the home being weathertight. But I think it's also important to note that that's perhaps a little bit misleading, because a dwelling isn't completely watertight at this stage. So when we say it's weathertight, it isn't completely weathertight, because further work is required to the timber frame structure, to the structural roof cladding, and the external joinery to make it completely watertight. But very, very fast to wind and watertight stage. And there's tons and tons of other advantages to building with timber frame. It's highly thermally efficient because the insulation is integrated into the structure of the dwelling itself, and then additional layers are added to increase the thermal performance. It's also highly sustainable. Timber obviously has superior environmental credentials. It's natural, it's renewable, it's a sustainable resource with low embodied carbon. We should be using it much more. The manufacture of steel and concrete have enormous environmental costs. So what are you going to say, Mike?
No, I was just agreeing with you. So let's debunk some common myths. You must get some in the timber frame space that customers believe are true, and you go, oh no, definitely not. But it's sort of the zeitgeist believes X. Give us some of those myths that pop up.
Oh, I've been asked some absolute corkers. On an exhibition stand, I was once asked if timber frame blows down.
Okay.
Can it blow down? It's like, well, no, because it's designed and engineered not to. I think one of the biggest challenges that we face, because obviously I mentioned that stat in Scotland, like 73, it might actually be 78% of residential dwellings formed in timber. In England, the last stat I looked at was around 23%. It may have crept up since then. Builders are they're used to traditional methods. They're used to masonry construction. They're probably not willing. If you look at the demographic of our trades, and we look at some of the skills, the skills shortage problem that we're facing, they're probably not all that keen on learning new methods. Like, dare I say it? Maybe I'm being a little bit
I think it's fair.
inflammatory here.
No, I think it's fair though. I think it's fair. If there's any builders listening, they'll probably go, well, it's because masonry's better. Like when you speak to a brickie, don't want to know about timber frame, but I suppose from their point of view, in their world, they know how to lay a block and a brick and get to wall plate. Why would they use a timber frame? But they are very much, I won't use a timber frame, from chats I've had with developers or self builders.
But so if a self builder is chatting to their the local builders, like, oh no, I wouldn't use timber frame.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
And so that obviously in England and Wales, it's a much harder sell is the wrong word. There's a lot more education required to give self-builders the confidence. Although, I think that NAXPA or maybe it's the STA have said it's the fastest growing build method, which is encouraging.
Yeah, it's prominent for us anyway. The one we get is I can't get a mortgage on a timber frame property, can I? All the time.
Yeah.
And when we say yes, people look at us like, well, we definitely, well, I can't, because 5 people have told me that I can't. Well, for everyone listening, you definitely can. There's no problems whatsoever. You can definitely get mortgage funding on it. So don't let that put you off.
The other one is, I won't get insurance. You can't insure a timber frame home.
Yes, you definitely can. Yeah. No issues like that. No extra prices, no additional premiums per se on the timber frame construction. So it's speed, it's efficiency. In the UK, it's brilliant. Like with weather, the weather we have is horrendous. So like you said, Joe, get it up a couple of weeks and then get the internal fit outs underway. If you have a bad spot of weather and you go and block, you're up the creek.
Yeah, and I think from my side of things, I mean, we occasionally get customers come into our sites where we're building, and again, all of those kind of timber frame myths come to the fore occasionally. And I think it was stating the obvious, really, but the best education piece then is we take them into our houses that have either been built, and we've got people living in them, and they're kind enough and very happy to kind of show people around, or we've got houses in build. And as soon as we take customers into something that is or in build or already finished, pretty much any of those misconceptions disappear straight away, because they walk around it and it just suddenly transforms it. And I think it is a bit of an education process. And I'm sure, as I say, Sarah and her guys are far better than me at educating people. But certainly, we find with our customer base that any of those kind of theories or myths, whatever you want to call them, we walk around one of the houses that we've already built and they just disappear. They're delighted with the product.
Is there any, I don't know if this is one for you guys really, but would there be any reason not to? I suppose, is there any certain design aspects where you really couldn't use a timber frame system?
Well, there's absolute flexibility in terms of design. You can do anything with timber frame. However, if you were going to put a basement in, you're not going to do that in timber frame. So there is some hybrid, and it's not unusual to have that hybrid there.
Yeah, for sure. Most people will see is use the ICF or just traditional like shuttering for the basement and then put the timber frame on top when it's done. Joe, I did do a little bit of digging on your guys' websites. I have obviously looked at them before, but I just wanted to have a little dig before the podcast. I saw the free service we talked about with Fleming, Sarah, and then the other thing I saw on your website, Joe, was the Plot Collective. What? Tell us about what the Plot Collective is and what the aim is.
So it comes back to that theory, or not even theory really, but the idea that there are people out there who want to build their own house, can't find the land. So again, starting from that basic premise of all of those people kind of wandering around trying to find it. And again, the nervousness really around building your own house. And I certainly know from customers who've come to us and then bought plots from us or whatever, that quite often in their search before they found us, they've come across land that might have planning permission for 2, 3, 4 houses, whatever. Now, stating the obvious, they only want one plot. So they kind of discount those areas of land because they only want one plot. And then if you add on the layer of that one to I only want one plot and I'm already nervous about building my own house. If I also then have to start putting into it roads, infrastructure, services, servicing other plots and all the rest of it, it really is kind of overwhelming for them. So really what we're trying to do is say to those people, we know from the marketing we do, and I'm sure you guys are all the same, about the customer base that is out there that want to do it. So really what the Plot Collective is trying to do is bring those groups of people together to then identify the land and allow them all then to get the plot of land that they want. And that may well be someone who is out there at the moment searching for land, maybe using something on you've got, Mike, in terms of your planning permissions. If they find something that's suitable for them, but it's 2 plots or 3 plots or 4 plots, don't discount it. Come to me or whatever, because we can probably help them deliver it. We can probably find the other buyers for the other plots because we know that there are people out there. And also we've got the construction and planning and development expertise to either change the planning if we need to in terms of what everyone might need it to be, or just in terms of the construction to actually have the ability to then put the roads, the infrastructure and all the rest of it in to service those plots. So really it's a way of saying to people, don't discount those bits of land that you see that you might otherwise discount because it's a multi-plot site or there's a difficulty with it, because we'd be happy to get involved and help deliver that site.
Love that. So if there's anyone out there listening, and I'm assuming the only people listening are people that want to sort of build their own home or commission their own home, where do they find Fleming Homes and where can they find Hugo Homes?
They can find Fleming Homes at www.fleminghomes.co.uk and on Instagram and Facebook at Fleming Homes UK.
And Hugo Homes is Hugo, HUGR is the website. Find us all through there, and there's various articles and links through there. And then likewise Facebook and Instagram. We don't use X, Twitter, but Facebook and Instagram are the main ones on social media we use.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on, guys. I really appreciate it. And I hope someone would have got value out of that for sure. Like the free estimating service for me is unreal. And yeah, that's just brilliant value. Right. Thanks for coming on, guys. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks very much, Mike. Pleasure.